I look out the window, and here's these just the biggest, baddest dudes, you know, drill sergeants with round hats, guns. Nobody's under 6'5", you know. And the whole bus just got quiet, you know. And one of the drills peeped his head in there and said, "Get off my bus now!" And so, you know, everybody's scrambling and everything else. And I'll never forget, I was telling the kids this morning, we laughed about it, but I had my 49er hat on backwards, and one of the drills grabbed my hat, and he ripped the bill right off the bonnet, and he puts it back on my head. And then he says something pretty obscene. I don't want to say it. But anyway, then we got our orders. And I got mine, said 10th Infantry, first unit I ever joined. And then the drill said, well, there was 3 of us. And he said, well, they're in Africa. You know, they're in Somalia. There's a conflict going, you know. So a couple of weeks right after that, I was right into a place called Mogadishu, Somalia. And I can laugh about it now because I'm free. But the name of our, you know, we have these operations, and you know, you got Operations Desert Shield, Operation Storm. Well, mine was called Operation Continue Hope. And I remember when that first bullet went across my head, the first thing I thought was, well, I continue to hope I don't get my ass shot off. But you know what? I remember being over there, now that I think about it, and I remember making the decision that God was not real, that He's not going to let these people live like this and all these things happen, you know. And so anyway, I got out the Army and started just hanging out in bars and stuff like that. And I ended up, a buddy of mine was in Modesto, so I came out here. Next thing I know, I'm back in Atwater and showing up with my little suitcase and showing up to grandma's, and you know, they're all thinking, man, why didn't you stay in and make a career of it, you know? And anyway, 2 months later, I'm sitting in a bar, and I met their mama. Yeah. Oh, man. I did my best work that night because I went home with her and never left, you know? But little did I know I was one day closer to my divorce, you know? But moved in with her, and it was just, she wasn't an alcoholic, she rarely drank. You know, she was the type, oh, give me another one, mine's warm. You know. I guess she thought it was fun, you know, at first. You know, she kind of, maybe I charmed her or whatever, but she thought it was fun. And I met a guy in a bar. Seems like everything's happened to me in a bar. And met a guy in a bar, worked for Save Mart, and we started drinking together. And I see him 2-3 nights in a row shooting dice. And he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I just got out the military, and I'm milking my unemployment right now." You know, that's how we talk. And he said, "Well, shit, you know, I work for Save Mart. Why don't you want a job?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I went out there and talked to him. And in them days, it wasn't like it is now, where you got to get online and all this stuff. I went in there and shook the guy's hand. He asked me, when can I start? You know, and then of course my ex-wife got pregnant, and and, you know, when you're an alcoholic and you get a girl pregnant right off the bat, you're thinking, shit, what about child support? The baby ain't even come out yet. But you thinking about the child support already, you know? Oh, man. But anyway, she decided it was time for us to get married, and I'll never forget it, man. I mean, she made the decision. I couldn't do it. And I'm having nervous breakdowns, and she's having to pull over and get me a drink, and we're only going to Merced, you know. So we went in there and said, I do, blah, blah, blah. And so she was happier than hell. And I don't know what I was doing. But anyway, now God bless her. We're on real good terms now. Anyway, so that night, you know, my wedding night, I didn't come home. I had a softball game, you know. And I used to go to these, we called them beer tournaments, you know. We would go play and somebody would have a keg and we right there in the tailgate, we just drink and play in these tournaments, you know. And I remember coming home and it would take me 2 days to get from Livingston to Atwater. Yeah. And I'd come home and just for cell phones and that, and my stuff would be in the yard, you know. I'd grab my little suitcase, go to my grandma. Then a couple days later, she'd call, hey, I'm sorry, I'm sorry too, baby. You know, and we just went back and forth like that, you know. It was always pick up a drink and it may last 2 or 3 days, you know, and not come home, and we just went back and forth like that. But when Eric was born, I don't know, you know, every alcoholic gets that idea in his head when he's getting close to 30 and he says, you know, it's time for me to grow up. You know, I got to settle down, I got a family here, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I quit drinking. And most miserable time of my life, you know. The whole time I remember thinking, I married the wrong woman. But anyway, then Ryan was born, and every once in a while I'd have to slip up. You know, I had no defense to say no, and the guys from work would say, hey, let's go get a drink after work, and I would. And then we'd close the bar down, and then I wouldn't come up. Yeah, and I'd do that every now and then, but so anyway, the big turn of events for me was I was about to turn 30 years old, and the kids were young, and she said, what do you want to do for your birthday? And I was like, my birthday's January. Whatever. She goes, why don't we take the kids to the snow? And I said, all right. And I hadn't had a drink in probably 6 months. And I'm restless, irritable, and discontent, you know. 1 minute I'm fine, the next minute I'm snapping, you know. You come home from work and you open the freezer and one of the ice trays isn't filled with water. Flip out. Yeah. But, so we headed up to the snow, and we got up to Strawberry Pinecrest, and we pulled down into where the cabins were. And as soon as we pulled in, here's her mom and her sister and that whole other side of the family, and they all come out, surprise! They had rented a cabin and threw me a 30-year birthday. Yeah. And I was all happy, and wow, this is great. You know, I didn't see it coming. And then my father-in-law handed me a Bud Light. And didn't even think twice of it. You know, you think about that. You know, they're like, she has the idea, you know, my parents and my in-laws had the idea, if we could just let him drink at the house and he wouldn't go nowhere, he'd be all right. You know? Yeah, why can't you just stay home when you drink, you know? But anyway, my father-in-law handed me a Bud Light, and I'd never had one before. And right off the bat, I'm like this, and, man, what is this? He goes, Bud Light? Wow, good, give me another one, you know? And unfortunately, all he brought was 18 pack. So phenomenon of craving kicks in, you know. And I drink everything, and then we're snowed in, and you can't get to the store. I tried, and I'm back in bed. She's telling me, "Go, everybody's asleep. Go to bed," you know. And I'm wired, you know. Let's talk about that for a second. You know, I don't get a good old-fashioned relaxing feeling when I drink, you know. A couple of drinks and I want to go to town. I want to accomplish everything that I had done, you know. And that sparked a 10-year run for me. Got home, started drinking on the way to work, started drinking on the way home from work, told myself I'm not going to drink at work no matter what. Next thing I know, I'm drinking at work. I worked nights out there at the warehouse, and it was real convenient for me. I had no ice chest in the pickup. Breaks and lunches, I'd go out. But then that craving, I'd come back in from lunch, and I can't wait till the next break to get another drink. And so I said, well, I just start bringing it in with me. And ended up getting in a lot of, you know, now my attendance is going bad and stuff like that. And I guess the real breaking point was my wife worked through a Christmas party up to Tansy. And I ain't been there since. But anyway, we were up there and she had all her employees there, family members there, and I'm drinking all the way up. And next thing I know, I'm just acting a fool in there. And she's supposed to be with her co-workers, and they had a nice dinner. They reserved a room right there and all that stuff, and we had hotel rooms already. And I started acting a fool, and anyway, that night ended with me throwing the luggage down the hallway. And then they escorted me out, and then she looked at me and she said, I'm going to my mom's. And that was it. Yeah, that was it. But then, like I am, I said, well, that's fine. I'm going to go get me a one-bedroom apartment. And so I ended up renting a one-bedroom apartment in Merced, and you know, I'm telling myself, man, I can drink now, you know. I ain't got nobody nagging on me. And things started to just spiral downhill from that point, you know. I seen a picture of the old grapevine one time, and it was a glass, and there's a guy in the middle, and there's alcohol, and he's just swirling down. That's the best I can describe that feeling right there, you know. No words can describe that bitter mass of self-pity, you know. And it got worse. Ended up in a treatment program. You know, I was in the union, and the first thing, you start missing days and getting suspended, they send you to the treatment program. And that didn't work. They let me out, you know. And but I ended up losing the apartment, and I ended up talking this guy in and letting me move into his place. Told him we'd split the bills. And next thing I know, I'm living in the garage, sleeping on the couch, and I thought that was cool, you know.